Call the meeting. Thank you very much. Welcome to the real world of the of this year. We go from week to week to week. You know, who knows what's going to come down the track in directives, but we'll go by whatever the town tells us to do. I'd like to thank Hank Sales, our guru of the computer, for filming this and making sure that it goes on our website. Susan Stern generously gave into my phone, into my pleas, I'll just put it that way, Susan, into my pleas to take minutes today. So Susan can do that. Welcome. You know, she could always, I don't know, I'll do something for her. I don't know what to do. Does anybody have any announcements that they want to make, other than your health week? No? Okay. Connie, you wanted to talk about that? Yep. Okay.
I just have I'm not looking for pity, I promise.
Connie, do you want to just loosen your mask?
The ladies of this club have worked so hard. It's just a marvelous job. And they keep doing things for us. And I think it's time we said thank you. So I wrote a little ditty, and there are some medals with the food. Pick up your little gold medal. Okay. I'll turn around. I'll show you the wall.
Talk to the camera.
Don't you
Talk to the camera.
What?
Talk to the camera. Camera.
You don't want to see me. As hurricanes rage and turmoil defines the political stage. And then Women's Club heard the call. United they worked to deter an AWC fall. Champions all. Today we say, hit the parade.
Okay, thank you. There are several little trophies in the dining room. I'm not going to say who should have one. Everybody is helped with this club. So if you want a trophy to go on your shelf, by all means, stick one up. Okay, any other business? No. Okay, it's my pleasure to welcome once again Paul Bockelman, sorry, I spoiled my part of my year's name, to the club to talk to us about what's going on in town. He needs no introduction, I think, so Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
I have an introduction.
Oh, you have an introduction? Yes. Oh, well, by all means, come up and give it. All right, Paul, you're still in the wings.
So he may need no introduction, but he's going to get one. Business cooperation. Okay. It's my pleasure to welcome back Amherst Town Manager Paul Bockelman as our speaker to begin the 2021-22 year at the Amherst Women's Club today, and speak to us about the state of the town, historic Amherst, in a time of challenge and change. Although he came from the Midwest, Paul Bockelman has made his career in the Northeast, serving as town administrator for the romantically named Manchester by the Sea for 13 years, working for the Massachusetts Municipal Association, advocating for all Massachusetts cities and towns, and most interesting to me, working for the City of Cambridge Historical Commission before becoming Amherst Town Manager in 2016. Okay. But he was familiar with Amherst. In fact, one could say that his world opened up in Amherst when he came to our amazing experimental and creative Hampshire College, fresh from 12 years of Catholic education, ending as a student in an all-boys school where he, as he said, majored in guilt. His words, not mine. That was quite a move. There in Hampshire, he met his lifelong partner on the first day of school, played on the ultimate frisbee team, and played in the very first ultimate college championship game against Rutgers. Great credentials for MIT, where he earned a master's degree in planning. Hampshire and MIT, what a winning combination. Paul is very proud of his family, which includes his partner Kathy, who does research and presentations on suicide for the Harvard School of Public Health. One daughter attending the Smith School of Social Work for a master's degree, and the other daughter is an actress at the La Mama Theater's Culture Hub, in the process of playing all the great female roles in the Greek classical canon, and touring locations from the Balkans to off-Broadway. Now, what does all this have to do with being the town manager of Amherst? To my mind, Paul Bockelman's background shows the discipline, social conscience, creativity, flexibility, and experience that makes him able to lead and survive in Amherst's no-holds-barred style of local politics. As town manager, he has led us through the transition from town meeting to our 13-member town council, and now is steering the ship upstate over the obvious and hidden shoals of the COVID-19 epidemic. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce you to Paul Bockelman, town manager of Amherst. So now he's going to tell us what he plans to, how he helps to plan usher Amherst into the future without our losing the strong sense of history and roots that help define Amherst. Welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Pam. Thank you for inviting me, and that's more information I think anybody in Amherst knows about my family. So, but one thing that's interesting is that because of the pandemic, my partner has just, when Harvard shut down, she moved out here and loves it. So we live together again after doing commuting thing during the first few years of my term for this town. So really pleased about that. And also because everybody's remotely, they can work, like my daughter will come up here and work for periods of time. So it's been sort of one of the side benefits of COVID. So you go to the next slide. So so today we're going to talk about historic Amherst and time of change, and try to tell you a little bit about, it's been a big change. We've had a change in government. We've had a change in society about racial justice and social justice. We've had a change in how we conduct our business because of climate action that we're trying to incorporate into our worlds. And then most fundamentally, the big change in terms of the global pandemic. Next slide. So here we are. Welcome to Amherst. So I'm going to start with a few things about the town, just to orient everyone. Sometimes people don't get it, don't understand enough about it. I'm just going to very quickly talk about the town, and then talk about what's going on in the town, and then talk about the big initiatives we have coming forward. So the town is, next slide, please. The town is roughly 28 square miles. Many people say it's 28 square miles surrounded by reality. And if you look at it, you can see it's long and narrow. It's a long town. We're right in the center of town. Some people say it looks like a number one, which we always like to think we're number one. So there we go. It has 100 miles of roads, and the long and narrowness of it actually is a challenge because, as you know, we're looking to find a location for our public works facility, and they want to be in the center of town because they're back and forth from their facility so often. But nobody wants them in the center of town, and it's hard to locate a 24-hour operation when it's snow and they're loading up sand in trucks and stuff. So it's been a real challenge to find the right place for the DPW. Next slide. So we're a pretty good sized community, almost 40,000 people. We're the largest community in Hampshire County. So look at it, we're larger than Holyoke, Northampton, we're 10,000 more than Northampton, 12,000 more than Greenfield, 13,000 more than East Hampton. And so there's size in this community, and we don't think of ourselves that way too often, but and so I think one of the challenges is to sort of who are we? And one of the first things that happened when I got here was, people would walk me downtown and they would look around and they would say, see this? We're becoming too much like Northampton. And I hear you on that. And then the next day I'd be walking around and they'd say, see this? We're not enough like Northampton. They have a vital downtown, and that's where we are as a community. We have two sides, people talking about the same thing. Next slide. We are a very young community. And why is our population large? It's really about college students. 58% of our population is between 18 and 24. And so that means that, and that's where a lot of our size is, because when they do the census, they count where you live on April 1. The college students are in Amherst, and it does reflect who we are as a community, because they are part of our community 9 months of the year. We're actually much larger than that, I think, because it's not just the people who live here, it's the thousands of people who work for the university, the two colleges, who come into town every day. And if they have a health problem, our ambulances respond. If there's a public safety issue, our public safety folks respond. About 9% are over 65. And as we think about our public safety, that's a large number of where the calls are coming from. But it's important to say that, students don't matter, but they do. They're part of our community, and I think many people in this club has done a remarkable job welcoming people from all over the world. You do a wonderful job with people from other countries when they come to visit you. Next slide. We have about 12.6% of our housing is guaranteed to be affordable. That's a pretty good indicator. The state asks every town to have at least 10%. So we're above that, and we're doing more and more as time goes on. But as we grow as a community, that we have to keep up with continuing to create more affordable housing. So these are units that are almost all rental, and they're required to hit a certain income bracket. Next slide. We're also, you can't read this, I know, so don't worry about it. I'll tell you what's on it, if you believe me. There's a very large number of people who don't speak English at home as their primary language. 22% of the people in Amherst don't speak English at home as their primary language. And if you look at the number for those who are under 18, it becomes much more telling, because if you're just over 18, it's only 12% of the people. So there's a lot of our children who don't speak English at home. And that speaks a lot about why we have to invest a lot into our education system, so they are able to learn and get up to speed in English ultimately. Next slide. Open space. So about 30% of the town is permanently preserved as open space. And that's one of the things we love about it. You drive down West Street, or you go up Northeast Street, you see these farms, you say, that's wonderful. And that's usually because we have purchased the development rights for them, or they're in some tax bracket that allows them to have a very low tax rate, so that they will stay as farms, because we all love the way the farms look. And what we have done to compensate for that is we said, we want to have development in our village centers, like Pomeroy Village, downtown, North Amherst. And we said, we will concentrate development here, but let's preserve the open space. With that, plus the amount of land that the university and the two colleges own, there's not a lot of taxable land left in town. And that's why, if you live in town, the tax burden is on a few smaller and smaller group of people. So we're always trying to lessen the burden on the regular homeowners, but understand that our colleges and universities have land for a reason, but they just don't pay us taxes on it. If they have land that they don't use for educational purposes, they do give us money for that. Just so you know, we are stepping away from purchasing land. I think the council has pretty much said enough. We don't, unless there's something really special. And we've done that except for one piece of land. That's Hickory Ridge Golf Course. Hickory Ridge Golf Course, we have a purchase and sale agreement for it for a bargain price. And that is going to come to the town hopefully within the next few months. And then there will be a major planning process. We're actually going to start next week or the week after, to start engaging the community, start to walk the site, help us think what we want to use it for. It's a really important site because the Fort River goes through there, and there's also going to be a solar array that we've already agreed to put on the site. So there'll be solar power being generated there. The owner of Hickory Ridge basically said, they came to us and said, we're not going to run the golf course anymore. What do you want to do with it? And we said, we want to buy it. And they basically said to us, there's two problems with their course. One is there's three golf courses in town. They said, we have two golf courses too many in this town. There's the Amherst Golf Club and Cherry Hill. The second thing is that They said, it floods a lot, and nobody wants to come and play golf, play 16 holes of golf. Because 2 holes always get flooded, and then they're out of business. So they just said the business model wasn't working for them. They were going to dispose of it. We thought it was important to not let that go into the hands of the developer and to seize that opportunity. The other thing that's really important about that piece of land is it's adjacent to what we call our environmental justice community on East Hadley Road, which is a lot of apartments. Our lowest income people live there. And right now, there's a fence up between the golf course and this community. We're going to be able to have paths and things that let people get to Pomeroy Village safely, not have to walk on West Street. And so there's a lot of opportunity. We can use it for affordable housing. We can spend some off for a development if we want. So it'll be a pretty robust discussion on what we want to have happen there. Next slide. So I'm not going to get into budget too much, but this just shows a picture of where our money comes from. 69% comes from property tax, which is on the people who are living here, the apartment complexes and the single property owners. 19% comes from state aid, and 7% comes from local receipts, which is things like meals tax and hotel taxes, things like that. Next slide. And where does it go? This is the regional school district. This is the elementary school district. About half of our budget goes to schools. The blue is the town. That's police, fire, DPW, everything else. And then these are the miscellaneous, retirement and all that kind of stuff that goes into that. So most of our money goes into schools and then our general government. And of all this money, about 85% of it is for personnel, either wages or health insurance. Those are the two big ones, retirement, things like that. Next slide. So this is a time of change for the town. I think Councilor Pam mentioned that. And I think we have this historic sort of, we want to honor the past, but we want to welcome the future type thing. And where's that balance? And that's the big challenge for us. The next. So as we've noted, the first big thing is that we had a change of government. So we went from our representative town meeting into a councilor form of government with 5 districts. We have 10 councilors, 2 from each district. And we have 3 councilors at large. There's a president that oversees the council and a vice president. They first met on December 3rd, 2018, and Councilor Pam was part of that. And that was our historic first town council. And there will be an election for the first time in November for the next town council. Next slide. So this is your councilors on one of their first meetings. They seem to be smiling then. We should do one at the end of the year. Stop smiling. So the way, if you all remember civics, so the way it works, you've got your legislative, you've got your executive, and you have your judicial. So our legislative used to be town meeting, it's now the town council. Our executive used to be the town manager and the select board, now it's just the town manager. And then the judicial is never in a local town, it's someplace else. And this is probably how you actually see the council now. Most of the time, they are on a Zoom call somewhere. So if you watch the council meeting, you'd like to see them in person, but this is how you tend to see them. Next slide. And this is just an organization chart that shows, I'm not going to get into our org chart, but it shows the town council that oversees the town manager, and then and it also appoints the planning board and the zoning board as 2 important committees. And then the town manager appoints the department heads and all the other boards. The school committee oversees the superintendent and everybody in the school district. The library trustees oversees the library director and everybody in the library. And then the housing authority oversees the executive director. So these are the elected officials. The Oliver Smith will elector is a single person who represents the town for a state or a will that's in Northampton, actually. So, next slide. Oh, this is, I think, one of the biggest wins of our town government. One of the things in the charter required that we have a community participation officer, someone who was charged with trying to reach out to the public and engage with them. So instead of hiring just one person to do that, I took 3 really talented, strong women on my staff and said, hey, how about if you 3 work with a team as community participation officers? And they've been spectacular. So Angela Mills used to work at Crockett Farm School. She's Latina, she has kids in the school district. Her husband's the coach of the Amherst College football team, very strong roots in the community. Jennifer Moiston grew up in Amherst at Village Park, very connected to the community, coaches football, and does everything, is involved in almost every activity you can imagine. And Brianna Thunred, they all live in Amherst. They all have children in the school district. And Brianna was a student at UMass when we first appointed, so she got the student piece of it, and also as our digital guru on how to communicate with people, trying to improve our digital presence. So I think of all the things that the charter did, this is the biggest win, having these three women. And right now we're talking about to each other about like, well, was this a good model? Let's think about it. Should we keep doing it this way? Should we do it differently? Because it has evolved. Okay, so I'm going to get into a little bit more detail. I just want to touch on some things. So we've had some private development, North Square, and then we'll come to this, Aspen Heights, University Drive, 1 East Pleasant Street. These are all things that are either have happened or in the works. For the town, I'm not going to get into too deep on these, but we have the Groff Park renovation with the new spray park at Groff Park. If you have not been there, please go there. Children love it. It's the activators, they step on a button, and the water comes on and it sprays them. And it's giant, it's like an amusement park. It's amazing that a town has this. We're building a dog park on Old Belchertown Road so that people can bring their dogs. They're not going to interfere with people who want to walk on the trails. And it's a place where there'll be a big dog area and a little dog area. So even there, we might have some separation. We're working on the North Common. The council said, yes, we want to improve that North Common. I was on it this weekend, and it's really atrocious. But boy, when we put some picnic tables out there, and people want to be there. They want to be in front of, they want to be outside, and this is the safest place for us to socialize. And then the Kendrick Park Playground, we just had a ribbon cutting for that a couple weeks ago. And if you haven't been there, please go there. It's a really spongy surface. It's designed for everybody. It's age friendly. So if you want to play on the swing or do anything, it's open to lots of different places to sit and watch kids, and it's very popular. And these were, Groff Park, Dog Park, Kendrick Park, and even North Common, all funded with grants that we got mostly from the state. The Dog Park was a private foundation that we got. So I want to talk about the big capital projects that are coming forward. That's probably on a lot of people's minds. So the first one is our new school. So if you recall, we had a plan for it, and then it went by the wayside. So we have a new plan coming forward. It seems to have a lot of support for it. It's an $80 million project, which is a lot of money. The state has stepped forward and said, we'll cover half of that cost, as long as you follow our rules, which we're doing to the, very detail-wise. So we're going through the designer. We had a lot of interest in designers who want to design this school. It will take the place. It'll either be probably at either Fort River or at Wildwood. The idea is to combine two schools because our school population is dropping. And this one school will replace the two schools, and we'll still have Crocker Farm. So that's the idea. And so that over time, that will save the town or the school district money because we won't have to have two principals, two nurses. It'll be all fit together. So that's a major project that's coming through. And the council, it seems like the council, they haven't chosen to do this yet, most likely would ask for a debt exclusion override, possibly as soon as November of 2022. And to remove something from the debt means that the taxpayers say, we think this project is so important and we want to do it. We want to take it out and pay additional money for the length of the bond, which will be 30 years. Next slide. We also know we need a new fire station to replace the one that's downtown. While we love having a fire station downtown, they keep a supply of mirrors in a box because the new trucks they barely fit in. They have like 2-inch clearance on each side, and if you've got a new firefighter, they knock off a mirror, just pulling in and pulling out. So we go through, and it's just not, if you've been in it, it's really kind of atrocious inside. So we definitely need a new fire station. We've done a lot of studies of it. We know that it needs to be south of Amherst because we want to have one in North Amherst. We want one slightly south of Amherst, and the location is the best location for that is where our current DPW is, which a lot of people don't know where it is. It's on South Pleasant Street, a little bit farther down from the Amherst Golf Club. It's behind this edge road. Nobody knows it's there, but that's where the best location is for the new fire station. $15 million. What we did the last couple of years was say, we're not gonna say whatever it costs, we're saying, here's our budget, build to the budget. So that's the $15 million one. Next one. The other one is the new public works facility, which I referenced earlier. It could be a lot more than that, but we're budgeting at $20 million for that. It's a very complex thing. It's really important because many of our vehicles are stored outside. We pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for street sweepers and things that cut down trees and stuff, and then they're stored outside and they just really deteriorate. So we want to keep them inside. There's some machines that need to be inside and heated, but not many. So we do need a sort of just a big barn basically to hold a lot of these vehicles and a place to work on them. So we have our mechanics who work out of the DPW as well. So our big challenge has been to find a location for that building. So as soon as we get that location, we know the fire can move into the DPW, but we have to find a new location for it. Next slide. The library. I know this is going to come up, and you're all going to be able to vote on it in November as to whether you want to see the library addition and renovation move forward. It's an expensive project at $36 million, but there's the state is coming through with about $14 million grant, which they've committed to, and they're going to pay us up front, which is, I've never heard of a grant program that gives you the check and then says go build it. Most of them say spend the money, then we'll decide if we reimburse you. So they're ready to give us a check for that. About $16 million will come from the taxpayers, $1 million from community preservation, and then the Jones Library trustees and friends of the Jones Library have promised to raise $5.7 million on their own. So when we put a question on the ballot, this question may come up, it says the full amount because that's what we have to borrow. It's the way bonds work. You have to put the full amount, and we want to put that on the ballot. But the reality is that that's the number roughly that we're looking to get from the taxpayers. Next slide. And then this is the one that's like just everybody's so happy about. Anonymous donor donated funds to help design, plan, and build this addition to the North Amherst Library, which is an iconic little jewel of a building. Not handicap accessible, no meeting room space. This will add handicap accessible bathrooms, a way to enter from the parking lot on the north side where the big sort of the big parking lot now. And then you'll be able to walk in, you can take a lift to get to the second floor, which is where the books will be, and there'll be a community room there as well that people can reserve and use. And I mean, Kuhn Reynolds designed this, and I don't have a slide that shows it connecting to the original, but they were really sensitive to the original building and they put a lot of thought in it. So the fact that it's not costing the town anything is really exciting. And the anonymous donor has been really generous and supportive of this throughout the project process. Okay. Oh, so I want to talk about, so one of the questions that comes up is, can we afford these 4 capital projects? When I got hired 5 years ago, the select board, even in their advertisement, says, we've got 4 projects that we need to get done. We don't know how to, we need to get, that's one of your jobs. So it's been 5 years that we've been at this. And so now we're starting to get to decision time. And this is where we're moving forward on the schools, the library, we get a location for DPW and fire. And I think for most people, like, whoa, we do this all at once, it seems like a lot. So the issue has been that the town this size should typically build a new building every decade. And we haven't built anything since the police station was built in '89 or something like that. So it's been like 3 decades and we haven't built a building. And so we're behind. But the good news on that, and you won't be able to see this, but this little thing shows all the debt that we have. All the debt that we have, all the money that we borrowed, we're going to have to pay that off in about 3 or 4 years. So we're going to be debt free as a town, which typically a community should have debt. You know, that's how you build a building. The people who get to use the building pay for it over time because they're the beneficiaries of it. So you borrow money and then they pay for it. The second thing we did is we said, well, we can't build these buildings and ignore all the other capital needs we have. We still have roofs that are going to need to be fixed, vehicles to purchase, things like that. So we put that's the orange thing. So we're going to hold on to that. That's the second thing. So we have to budget for that. And then we put in the fire, which is red, the DPW, which is, I'm colorblind, green, gray, whatever that is. And then the library is purple. And we sort of stack them all and say, what would the payments be over time? And then And we said, but the one thing is, we talked about the council saying, we would look at this and we put the school on a debt exclusion, so that wouldn't show up here. So then we said, well, how much money do we have? And this is the amount of money we have, and there's this little dotted line is the gap we have. So we did, so the thing where we are right now is that we have our debt falling off. We've saved a lot of money. Our free cash, and I'll show you on the next slide, is way up. We have a lot of money in the bank in that we can help shave off this, so we can use our free cash to pay that off. And then we also, at the same time, as we were building our budget over the last 5 years, every year we say, let's devote a little bit more to capital. Let's devote a little bit more to capital, so that we were really meeting our capital needs. Previously, the town was putting all this money into operating and not as much into capital, because that was where salaries are. But you know, we've been really trying to be very disciplined about putting it aside for capital so we can meet the physical needs, roads, sidewalks, things like that. Next slide. So this shows we have a financial plan. So we want our savings rate of I'll call it savings between 5 and 15%. That's our goal. So as of last year, we were at 21.5%. We normally want to be at 15%, and that's purposeful. We want to have extra money set aside, you know, not just for an emergency, but to help shave off this capital thing. This year, it'll be even higher because we've done a really good job at managing our budget last year. So we have money. So again, we have debt falling off, so we have fewer debt payments to make. We have money set aside to cover the bulge that comes forward. And then we've also carved out, you know, elbowed out room in our budget to help pay off the debt as it goes forward. Okay. So what's happening in town? And this will draw a lot of attention, I think, because there's a lot of development happening in town. And some of it people like, a lot of the people don't like, but here's what the market is driving towards. So the first one, everybody remembers Kendrick Place, very controversial by the new roundabout down at that end of town. In terms of money coming into the town, they're paying $225,000 more a year than what was there previously. I referenced the North Square at the Mill District, which is if you've been up there, it's a big area, it's a lot of apartments. All the apartments are rented. The commercial space isn't going too quickly. I think that's sort of true everywhere. Retail is just really hard. If you're not a restaurant, there's just not much retail. Xana does okay, but there aren't a lot of retail going on. They don't pay too much in taxes, $188,000 in addition to what was there before, because the town has subsidized a lot of that. We gave them $1.2 million worth of tax credits to make sure that there's a lot of affordability in these units. So this is very large number of affordable units. Plus, the units aren't just at the median; it's at 80% of the median. It's really below what you normally would need to be. Next slide. So these are things that you may be familiar with or you may not. So these are things that developers are coming in and building, and they're almost all apartments because that's where the demand is. University Drive apartments, 36 apartments, and that's as you go down, you drive from where Big Y is, it's on your right. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. 1 East Pleasant Street was built, 135 apartments. That sort of, it looks very similar to Kendrick Place. Next slide. Just down the street, you'll see a development happening called Center East Commons. So they're cleaning up, they're almost finished and getting ready for occupancy. So that's right along the railroad tracks back there off of Main Street. Aspen Heights apartment is on Northampton Road. Part of it is in Hadley. It's where the Amherst Hotel used to be as you go out there. This is a major new development, $291,000 in new taxes. I mean, they're building it because of the university. They're building apartments for people who want to work at the university or go to school at the university. Next slide. 1 University Drive South. Now, if you're going from, you come out of the university, drive away from the university in Northampton Road. If you go across, right there's a new development happening. That's what this is. It's going to be retail. I think there's a doctor's office going in there. And then there are, what they say, 45 dwelling units as well. And then Greenleaves is adding units, an increase of $7.5 million in their valuation. So they're seeing a market as well for that level of development. Next slide. Savannah's is a bar and bistro that the people who used to run the pub are going to be operating. Brand new buildings, sort of pizzas and things like that, adjacent to where the hangar is on University Drive. Who knows? This is Spring Street Apartments. This is right down there. Right now, it looks like there's some wood sticking out. It had no work has been done for it since the pandemic began. We're not really sure if that's moving forward or not. There's a lot of issues with that development. Next slide. Things that could be coming your way. This is Southeast Commons, which is on Southeast Street when you pass College Street. If you go, like you're going farther down to South Amherst, you see a fence, and the developer wanted to put, again, more apartments there and got permission to do it. But I think, again, during the pandemic, a lot of funding sort of got challenged on these things. And then 1113 East Pleasant Street is another one that's relatively controversial because it's adjacent to 1 East Pleasant Street and this sort of grayish building there. Next slide. Oh, and then these were town-supported or town projects. This is on Northampton Road, a single resident occupancy. It's for people who are coming out of homelessness. They have a room and a kitchenette to themselves. And there are 28 units run by a nonprofit, Valley CDC. Really important for that, to help folks move on from being homeless. You need that first place in order to get a job, to get mail, all those things. So we're really excited about that. And then 72 to 80 Belchertown Road, which is a piece of land the council approved us to purchase, which is just as you're going out Belchertown Road on your left. There are a couple little houses for sale, so we purchased that. We're packaging that up with the East Street School to see if a developer will come in to do affordable housing on these two sites. Next slide. So some of the things that the town is doing, which is exciting, is again the North Common revitalization, and I think we learned this summer. The summer was so successful on the Common when the concerts that the bid put on, and also the council approved selling wine and beer on the Common. And that's worked out really well, where you go in and you have to get a wristband. I was there on Saturday, and you have to go to somebody independent of the two sellers of the, and they asked for it. One guy came up and he says, "Can I show you my arthritis pills?" Because clearly he was older. They said, "No, that's good. We believe you on this one." But that's a major project we're hoping to get started in the spring. And then Pomeroy intersection with Pomeroy and West Street, the council approved a small rotary there, which will improve traffic, make it safer. It's just we received a $1.5 million grant from the state to help fund that. Next slide. So I'm talking a lot, but we can come back to any of these things. But it's just not the set town. The university is doing a lot too. They built a new student union that just opened up, gorgeous inside. They built a new dining commons, $68 million investment there. They did a lot of stuff down in their campus. They're redoing the center, this Bromry now, called Bromry Center for the Arts. You'll notice on North Pleasant Street, they just fenced off the North Village because that's student family housing. They're getting ready to demolish and rebuild that. That will be up. They're projecting for the fall of 2022 for students and their families to move back in. And then another big one in Councilor Pam's neighborhood is the Mass Ave. They have a large 600-bed dormitory plan on Mass Ave, and so they're getting that ready for construction. They're going to start demolishing the Lincoln Park apartments. It's going to go on a parking lot that's there now, but they're also going to demolish the Lincoln apartments. So that's coming forward. So they're making pretty big investment in a lot of different. So there'll be a dorm up front, and then there'll be a graduate student dorm behind that's adjacent to the neighborhood. Next slide. Amherst College, they built a new residence hall. They built a new science center for $250 million. They're getting ready to build a new academic building on North Pleasant Street. And then the student center dining area, there becomes this war among private colleges, that first it was the science building, they all had to have new science buildings. Then now it's about physical fitness centers, and now it's about dining halls, because they're fighting for the same students. Williams is doing the same thing in all those cat colleges. It's like, well, New Hampshire, my alma mater, they're like breathing, trying to struggle for air. They have done a lot of good things. They have 2 of the 7 living buildings in the world on their campus at the Kern Center, which is a college built, and the Hitchcock Center, which was built privately. They have a ton of solar array. They are, I think they're doing okay. They have a new president who's doing well. They own 800 acres, 600 acres in Amherst, enormous land holdings. And they're starting to think about if they should monetize that or not. And, it's very significant decisions. There are some areas that we think around Atkins that say, yes, definitely. There are other areas that we worry about. So we're in communication with them. They're very good at communicating in terms of what their intent is. But they're trying to hold their mission is to survive. And so everything goes on the table. So next slide. Okay, now this is the last section. This is for the challenges that we have coming forward. So there are 3 big things that I want to mention. One was the COVID-19 pandemic. The second was the urgency of climate action. And the third was racial equity and social justice. So just a couple slides on each one. I know I'm getting windy on you. Next slide. So COVID-19, March 13th is when it sort of began for our town. That's when we closed town hall. And when I announced it, I said, we'll be open in 2 weeks, hopefully by April 1st. No. It became really intense. We had a very intense time there. It was sort of one of these things where you thought you were in a sprint, and then you thought you were in a 5K, then a 10K, and now it's a marathon, and now you don't know when is this race going to end. So that's where we are. Next slide. As soon as it hit, and we didn't know. Think about what we knew then, what we didn't know then, what we do know now. Like, we were telling people don't touch anything. Like, that's not such a big thing now. We didn't know how it got transmitted. We had a team of the police chief, the fire chief, the DPW superintendent, the finance director, the assistant town manager, and we met 7 days a week for about 2 months at 9 a.m. every morning, Saturday and Sunday included. To how are we doing? How is our first thing was continuity of operations. How are our firefighters? Are they protected today of everything they need? Are they? We didn't know. We knew how contagious it was. What about police? Are they protected? Do they have all the equipment? And everybody, every little town was scrambling to get the same stuff at the same time. We all remember that, right? Toilet paper, whatever it is you were looking for. We were in the same boat looking for things. We were worried about our water treatment operators and our wastewater treatment operators. Those are things that are core to the town. If those things go down, we're in deep trouble, because that's what you depend on. We had to keep paying our employees. They care a lot about getting their paycheck, as we all do. So we had to make sure our finance offices were, and we weren't going to let people work from home on that. We let a lot of people work from home, but we were nervous about that. Just everything that you can think about. IT was crucial because we had to get the wheels of government up and running and start to meet again, so we could talk to the council and things like that. Well, we weren't allowed to meet together. Next slide. So the pandemic hit, and then what came with that was a budget crisis. Last year, if you remember, our revenue just dropped off the cliff. And so we, instead of putting all the money that we intended for capital, we cut it way down. I was pretty intent on not wanting to lay off employees. I thought that was a bad thing to do, both for the economy, but for our employees' lives. And I thought it was a bad long-term strategy. We were able to get through without laying off any employees, but we cut back in other areas that we felt we could have. And we didn't buy, I don't think we bought any vehicles that year because we just said people first. And then I just credit our team, our senior leadership team, who just came through every step of the way, and whatever was needed. Our health director, I mentioned our health director, Julie Bockelman at the time, was fantastic. Next slide. And then we tried to do a million things. And we did all these things about letting people know what's going on. We set up a hotline, and ambassadors have to enforce the mask regimen. We put up a new website for COVID, and then we knew people couldn't come to meetings, so we had a website for people to engage with us. Our health department, they ran programs. They were going to special clinics in different neighborhoods where where people who had vaccine hesitancy might show up. 13,000 people got doses of vaccine through our services. We did a Friday Delight Meals where we got a grant and we said, business, restaurant, you provide us with 50 meals, we'll pay you for them. And then we're going to give them through Family Outreach of Amherst to people who need it. So it was a win-win. So it helped the business. And the businesses would say, this made my payroll for the week. Thank you. Because they were struggling. We knew they were struggling. So next slide. The second thing of the three was climate action. Well, the first thing the council did on one of their first resolutions was to recognize the importance of climate action goals, and they adopted them early on in their tenure. Next slide. So we knew we had to do better on our buildings. We had to get solar going and reduce solid waste. Next slide. So these are the things. We have a bylaw that town meeting passed for net zero energy buildings. We're getting close to putting solar on the landfill for the town. We're looking at all these other things. The key thing for us is that we're looking through everything through the lens of climate action. When we look at any purchase, any financial decision, the first thing the department have to do is how does climate action play into this decision? And is there a way to do it that meets our climate action goals? Next slide. So the third thing and last thing is the racial equity and social justice. With the murder of George Floyd, that came front and center, and we can really important to the entire community. And the council recognized that as well. The next slide. So first thing we did is I set up the community safety working group, which has been working for a year, to say, what can we do in our community to make the entire community feel safe? They came out with some recommendations early. They're going to come back on October 25th with additional recommendations. So in our budget this year, we have a diversity, equity, inclusion officer included. We have set up a core equity team of employees who are meeting together to talk with each other about how we can do better at supporting each other and being more sensitive to racial justice issues. Next slide. One of the big recommendations from the Community Safety Working Group was to set up a alternative responder program, so that if you are calling because you lost your keys or something, instead of having a police officer respond, they might have an alternative responder, or someone that's having a mental stressful, they're contemplating suicide. Maybe we have someone other than a police officer show up. Sometimes police officers in uniform are really welcome. Sometimes people won't call because they do not want a police officer at their home. They may be in mental crisis, but they want someone other than a police officer. So we're trying to build this program that's sort of in between fire and police. And it's kind of challenging, but we're working really hard at it. The African Heritage Reparation Assembly is a committee of primarily Black, a couple elected officials, but other people from the town. They're starting to look into reparations as part of a strategy to address social justice. What's coming from the Community Safety Working Group is a resident police oversight board who can talk to. So if you have a complaint about the police, you can go to this independent board and talk to them. And the other is a Community Safety and Social Justice Committee, which is to continue to help us monitor how we're doing on some of these topics. And that's it. I didn't really pay attention to my time. I hope I didn't go too long.
I have a question. I live on Lincoln Avenue in the middle of town.
Yeah.
And anybody who's driven down that, I live between Route 9 and Amity Street. And I'm really concerned about the infrastructure, and I haven't heard you talk a lot about how we're going to, our sidewalks through them. Lincoln Avenue, actually, a friend of mine called the DPW at the end of August. She was so upset by the condition.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, if you don't fix that and I get a flat tire, I'm going to sue the town. And then 2 days later, they came and filled some of the potholes. Why does it take so long? And also, this is twofold. It's become apparent at Route 9 and Lincoln, Amherst College students are using that end of the street as a parking lot. And I see the same cars all the time in front of my house There's a car, the Jeep that's been there for days, I called the police about, it's legal, I guess.
Yeah.
That's been used, and he was student tell me one time. He's living in town and there's no parking provided, so they're parking, using Lincoln Avenue as a parking lot, basically. So I guess it's legal, right? So is there anything we can do about that? I mean, it's very, very frustrating. And I appreciate all that you said and done, and it's very understandable and laudable, but I do think we've got to take a look at the infrastructure of the town. My kids were here this summer and they said, Mom, look at the condition of the roads and the sidewalks, what's going on? And they all grew up here.
Yeah, so there's two excellent points there. One is the condition of our roads. So we've done a fair amount of investment in our roads. They tend to be the major drag. You know, we've done all Northeast Street now, all Southeast Street. And so there are lots of roads that we've done, but we have a lot more to do. And we've been devoting more and more time or money into doing the roads. We haven't done as many secondary roads as we'd like to.
Lincoln really isn't the secondary.
No,
road.
it's
Actually,
really-
Wade discovered it too,
Yeah.
so there are a lot of, they come through there all the time.
So, but when there's a pothole or anything like that, call and report it to the DPW, because if someone does get a flat tire and we aren't aware of it, we're not responsible for it.
I know.
But if we are aware of it, we are responsible for it. So that's always the thing to do is call and put it on the record. In terms of parking, I know Councilor Brian and Pam have been working on parking, and there's this, the council talked about this, it became this sort of thread that you started but it's coming back to the council relatively soon, I think next few weeks, to say, like, especially on Lincoln Ave and Kendrick Place is the other place that we talked about what to do about that parking. People have a right to park on the street, even, but we want to make sure it's safe and that,
Well, and the thing is too, that I find Amherst College is not maintaining some of their properties on Route 9. The one right at the end of, you go on Lincoln Avenue, straight across Route 9, there's a beautiful house there. When my husband consulted in Amherst College, we used to go to parties there. It's a beautiful house. It's going to rack and ruin. And there's another house up just a bit towards town. So it's totally going to rack and ruin. And they're paying tax on that. I hope they're paying good tax. And they should be paying tax for their students parking on our public street.
so if you can let me know the address of that property, because then I do have, I just had an email from the president this morning, saying we need to get together. So if I have a list of things like that it brings it her attention.
Well, I've actually contacted a couple of years ago, I wrote a note to their, maintenance people, I guess, and about garbage and some of their property, and they took care of that right away. No response at all about the house.
Let me know what that address.
It's been
Bring it
empty
up.
for a while.
I would like to say something in favor of town. In the last 3 or 4 years, I'm every summer going to Public Works and ask them to address the issue of Lassie Street where I live. And they were coming always doing the potholes. And due to that intervention, our street, Lassie Street, that is just across the road, is still holding up. So
But they're just filling potholes, they're not.
yes, but that is also very important, because if they were left unfilled, then it would be much worse. And it's true that if you go to Belchertown or you go to Ware, everywhere the roads are better than in Amherst. I'm afraid to say that is the reality.
Yeah.
So,
We'll keep working at
and,
it.
I'm very consistent. I go not once, I go 2 times sometimes. So I don't give up on them, and they come. Yeah, they come.
Yeah. Excuse me, I watch the council meetings pretty regularly, and several months ago, when the social equity situation for coffee arose, I got the impression that the Amherst police were not performing as we would want them to. And essentially, I felt like they were being vilified by many of the people that came on. And I'm sorry that wasn't the case. And I don't know whether they are the bad guys and you all agree? Or would there have been a way to say, we don't ever want them to be that high, but I got a real impression, and I was sort of hoping that the dialogue at that meeting would be more about, thinking about, well, this is a national thing, we want to be on top of it, but yeah, I felt like it was mudslinging and the Amherst police, and I didn't feel anybody stood up for it, but maybe they're bad, I don't know, what's the
That's
situation?
a really good point. The Amherst Police, I have, of all the departments in the town, it's one of, it's the department I have the most respect for. I think the chief is spectacular.
Yeah.
He's built a culture of respect. He's been doing implicit bias training for years. The officers go beyond the call of duty. We often get feedback from folks. I think the broader dialogue about race and police is a pretty volatile one. It's hard. It's a hard one too. And it's hard when you're a police officer to hear that you're part of a system that isn't good for my community. And you think, well, I'm a good person, but you're wearing a uniform that identifies that. And we've heard a lot of really sharing testimony from people in the African American community who feel that they're over-policed and things like that. So it's trying to figure out where we are in that. I mean, I think the Amherst police are really important to our community for 100 different reasons. I think we hire really strong officers. We're in the envy of Western Mass. People want to work for our department because we have such a strong leadership team and also a strong ability to go. We do a lot of training, and that's really important. And I just in my privileged position, I see instances where people are living because another officer would have made a different decision, and it's because they've been training really well. Are there things that have been bad incidents? Yes, I'm sure there have, but and that's one of the reasons we're trying to be open to say, what are those things? How do we get better? And I think I failed a little bit by not standing up for the police.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair
I was
critique.
waiting for you to say something.
Yeah, and I think that that's my own issue, with getting it at tumultuous time. So
I think part of the problem, and they're right, this wasn't really brought out, but it's a moment of culture change. And the Amherst police were following police policy, which I think started in New York, it's the broken windows thing, which is you don't let anything small happen without a response. You do forewarning, you do a lot of surveillance, you do a lot of driving around, and it keeps crime down. And that was pretty much working. But then what we saw through the hearings was from the people, particularly people of color, they were feeling they were being watched all the time. They were feeling that the police cars were coming around too often. And it's true, like if a police car comes around my street, I don't think they're coming for me. But they were having that feeling. So we had to realize that this policy, which was really touted nationwide, it started in New York under Bratton, I think, was in fact being seen as oppressive by many people of color. So, I remember when I asked the chief, I said, what is your protocol when an officer shoots their gun? And he said I don't forget what the number of years, 20, 30, or 40 years, but I've been here, no one has ever used their gun. So, we don't have a trigger-happy police department, but it was a style of policing which was very approved at a different place at different time, which seems to be perhaps not the one for now.
And the town has not had that conversation on that, because there's the model of community policing, which means you want the police officers in the neighborhood, you want them communicating with people, you want them buying ice cream for other kids and things like that. You want them to get to know kids. And then there's the sort of other side, which is you're like a firefighter. You stay in the station until someone calls, and then you come out and respond. You don't patrol. And I think that's this town hasn't had the conversation about where do you want your police force to be. We want the community to feel, the entire community to feel safe. So it's an important conversation to have.
I am hearing about the parking issues in town, which we all are really familiar with, but especially hard on people who live in town and finding park all over the place. There's a contemplation of building 2 new big buildings with no parking. What is the rationale and we want infill. And I understand that isn't the idea that if you have more people downtown, they'll, go to stores, and there'll be better, money spent in town and better for business. But if you fill it with students, they go buy pizza and carry around a slice of pizza on their hands or bubble tea. That's not business. So, I don't understand the reason, the rationale of filling all these buildings with students. Universities should be filling their buildings.
So first, the university is building, we talked about the 800 students that they're going to build in their new dormitory. So that's what, they house more students on campus than almost any other university in the country. So they do a fair amount, but then the economics of it, there are a lot of students who are here who want to be near Amherst. They don't want to live in Belchertown, they want to be here. And the sort of, what was happening in our neighborhoods is that you've got developers coming in, buying houses. One developer bought 3 different houses on one street, and they rented to students because they could make that work money-wise. They make a lot of money that way. And that's not what we want to have happen either. So building apartments that appeal to students is actually a good thing. The idea of no or limited parking for once downtown it was designed to create density in the downtown area, because otherwise you've seen other neighborhood places where they have these big swaths of parking lots to accommodate all the cars for that. Whether that's worked or not is a real question, because we see the other unintended consequences that all those cars now are in the neighborhoods, parking in the streets of the neighborhood. So that's something we have to look at as well. So
We look at that before.
that's for the planning board and the council.
I just feel I have to say this. As someone who lives, downtown adjacent, we have to go in planning board meetings with Kendrick Place. First, like 7 years at this point, talking about just that. There was no parking required at Kendrick Place, and then Pleasant, and now 11 to 13. So it wasn't really an unintended consequence. I think we knew this was going to be a consequence. And there's hundreds of students living downtown now. So they're parking where they can.
Right, and so is this improving the business status of the center of town as well? Because I think that's part of the concern, that it becomes a better place to own a shop.
So I think the retail market has changed pretty dramatically. The idea of a shop that people purchase things on is there aren't many there in almost any place. It's just fewer and fewer. It is about food, beverages, and experiential things like bars and things like that. So I think that's, if we look at what our retail sector is going to look like going forward, that's really what it's going to be revolving around. It's sort of what Northampton has become. You're not going to have a shoe store. It's just the town won't support it, and those people aren't going to go there anymore. So I think we're sort of in a changing economic world for that. We haven't done any sort of economic analysis of the new apartments and whether they've actually generated new revenue. For certain businesses, I think you're right. It might be bubble tea, it might be pizza, it might be restaurants. I eat downtown a fair amount, so I do see a lot of people out and about on the streets, but I can't tell you they're tagged to a particular development or not.
I feel I should add this. We started going to those meetings before you were counting. Holding responsible for what's happening from your thing.
I think it's time that we bring this to a close. You've been very patient.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening.
I've been here at least once before. My dad is already.
Yeah.
And this is
Thank you.
okay, shoot. Now, I'm not sure what's happening with refreshments. Are we actually having something? Okay.
I can go out in the garden. After we take refreshments, we can go out in the garden and have there. We
Yeah,
don't
but
mind.
the refreshments are in the dining room.
Yeah, we can go out.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So I want to now,
And remember, they think they deserve a medalist
yes, yes, don't forget, there's some medals there. Okay, meeting adjourned.